In this podcast, chat about the win against Hull, the return of Isaiah Jones, and answer your podcast questions. This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and this is like a Boro Match Day chatter in a pod.
Support. Curtis Fleming is there on the edge of the area. Fleming for Craig Hignett. Hit it, Higgy. Higgy hits the treble!
Anfernee coming alive again. Juninho wants the ball played to him. Anfernee spots out Emerson!
Hello and welcome to the Boro Breakdown podcast with Jonny and Dana. We are the Boro podcast that gives you all of your Boro Match Day chatter in a podcast. And Boro came back from 1-0 down to beat the Tigers 3-1 at the Riverside. It was a 6-minute blitz, and Boro are now in the top 6 for the remainder of the season because we qualified for the playoffs. Dana Mo, how are you feeling about Boro's win against Hull City?
Just really grateful, to be honest, that we've got a team that can win like this. Sort of, you score one, we'll score three, and it's absolutely fine with us. And yeah, I think it's just good to go at the Riverside and be entertained because we've had many, many seasons of the exact opposite of that. I will say I was entertained under Chris Wilder, but not to this degree at all. And just good to, have a team that can put a smile on your face because sometimes you just need it.
You absolutely do. And we were really fun in that second half against Hull. I walked away from the stadium absolutely buzzing. I thought we were brilliant in that second half, and just it's just so fun in it at the minute. I really enjoy myself when I go to matches, and I've never had this. I haven't said that for a while. In terms of if you look back at the previous seasons where it was like gouging my eyes out to watch sometimes.
Yeah, certainly when we've been doing this pod as well, we've had some awful games to dissect. Awful.
I know, and I don't blame people for not listening either because it was a poor period in Boro's history. But shall we chat about the game against Hull? And we'll go from the very beginning because Boro made one change with Mark coming in for Ramsey, Hackney on the left hand side. It was pretty much the system that we moved to against Norwich when Ramsey got injured. Dana, what's your thoughts actually on this? Because Hayden Hackney's moving to the left-hand side now. It's a little bit different from having the out-and-out winger or an attacking player on that left-hand side. So what's your thoughts on Hackney shifting over to the left?
You can see why Carrick has done it because technically Hayden Hackney is very gifted. I think he's good at taking the ball on the half turn. He's good at carrying the ball. And he's good at making good decisions and he has a good pass selection. So you think about that McGree role, it needs that technical type of player. And I think although we've seen Hayden Hackney in a slightly deeper role, playing alongside Johnny Howson, I can definitely see why Carrick shifted him over there. Obviously, we don't really have another option there, do we? Because McGree's injured and Ramsey's injured as well. But to put him there, I think he suits it. He seems to really suit it. And I know that, yes, it's not an out-and-out winger role, but it never has been. And it's good that we have players like Hackney that are comfortable in tight spaces, comfortable in the half space. And I thought he was really good. There was some really good, neat link-up play between him and Marcus Forss at the very beginning of the game, which made me think that we'd started it well, and then it sort of descended into a bit of a lull for us and then became incredibly flat. But I thought, Hayden Hackney is definitely, he seems to have improved going there because there was a conversation sort of simmering under on Boro Twitter and the Boro sphere that Hayden Hackney had dropped below his levels. So this has sort of picked him up a little bit. And again, Carrick just, I know it was enforced, but making a good decision, and Hackney's been fantastic there, I think, the past 2 games.
Yeah, and I would fully agree as well. And when it happened against Norwich and he played in that left-hand side role, I was like, that's a bit odd. You've got Isaiah Jones on the bench. You've also got Crooks there. You could maybe maybe shift Cameron Archer over on that left-hand side if you wanted to. And I was pleasantly surprised seeing him there. And, what does he give you? He gives you a really good shape out of possession. He's good on the ball. He finds the right spaces. He knows the right pass. He can slow it down a little bit. But that's fine because if you slow it down but making the right choice, then that's probably better than making the wrong choice and doing it very fast. So I think it's really good, impressive scoring 2 and 2, and something you didn't probably associate with Hayden Hackney. But moving that role, it creates opportunities for you elsewhere. But obviously with that, then we've now got some more injuries to talk about. Force, Smith, adding to that list of Fry, McGree, Ramsey, who I think Carrick did say they're definitely out for Monday's game as well. So are you concerned with the injuries that we're seeing, or do you think it's like a positive thing because you give an opportunity elsewhere?
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. It's a concern because they are mounting and they're mounting to really important players. God forbid Chuba gets injured because I guess a bit of a question to the listeners, really, like who can fill that role because it's very specific and he is playing it incredibly well. You take Chuba out the team, we're going to take a hit in terms of our attacking output. Whether that will make a difference, I really don't know because we do seem to just click anyway, but Chuba's fantastic. Anyway, fingers crossed, he doesn't get injured. But it's an opportunity for players, isn't it? And Carrick has always said that it's a squad game, and you see Dijksteel and Jones come into the team and more as well. They have performed really well in what we've seen from them so far. They've got a point to prove. It's a massive incentive going into the really high pressure games in the playoffs. Because again, we're confirmed for the playoffs. It's a good incentive there for them to really prove a point, and I'm happy to see them back. I'm happy to see this squad being used because, we've been rather fortunate that we've hurdled over some injuries and that we've had a couple, but they've come back, i.e. Darragh Lenihan when he just magically, the magic on him and then he just reappeared. But it's a concern. I can't get over that. It's a concern. It's not ideal, but it's good that we've got strength in depth, which is something that we ourselves spoke on this podcast was a bit of a concern earlier this season. The lack of supposed strength in depth and just depth in general. So in the end, I guess you can say that the recruitment, big tick in the box there.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like there's two players for every role, but then also I think what you're saying there, Dan, around the opportunities that have arisen following the injuries has been promising, hasn't it? Like Dijksteel was great, Jones was great. I like to see Dan Balassi if he gets the opportunity because he always looks very smooth when he comes on, and there's opportunities elsewhere which could hopefully lead to more success on the pitch. But let's move on and let's chat about the game in general because we had to come from 1-0 down to win, and we could have won 7-1 probably by the end of it because we created that many chances. But how would you assess things, Dana? Because it seemed like a tale of two halves. A game of two halves is a very football cliche, so I'm going to say a tale of two halves. So what do you think? What was your assessment on that?
Yeah, it really was, wasn't it? I mean, as I said, I thought we started relatively okay, and it got me thinking that we were going to score fairly soon. Just with the territory that we were having, we were working it inside the box in really tight spaces, actually. Usually Boro start their moves outside of the box and then venture in. We were sort of playing it inside the box in really risky areas in terms of the likelihood of losing the ball. But after that, I think Hull seized control of the game. And in fairness to them, they did look really well coached, to be honest, in terms of retaining possession of the ball, building it up through the thirds, and gaining enough possession for their backline to move forward. And you could see them sort of creeping up a lot of the time. There were a good few combinations from them. That there was a shot from Pelkas, a little 1-2, and his shot just sort of passed it wide. It was a pathetic effort, to be honest. It was really tame. But yeah, you can't say they didn't deserve their goal. It was a bit of a flat performance in the first half from Boro, but then, as we've seen many times this season, the habit that we've got of scoring goals in quick succession is, I don't think I've seen that from a championship team. I don't think I've ever seen that from a championship team. Granted, I'm not a staunch championship watcher like Gab Sutton is, for example, but I think I can't recall a team doing that. So yeah, we absolutely love these pockets of beautiful chaos, don't we? We seem to perform really well in them, and there's some fantastic. Well, the pick of the goals. I was wondering whether Atpom's was as good as Archer's, but I don't know. They were both two very good goals there. Obviously, Hackney's was deflected, but the build up for the Archer one, Zach Steffen, long ball, Archer doing what Archer does best, out muscling and outpacing a centre half, and then just slotting it through Carl Dowell's legs like the clinical finisher that he is. And then Tubers to take that on the swivel, hit it back where it came from, and nestle so perfectly, so satisfyingly in the corner of the net, into the corner of the net, was really, really good. So yeah, the second half, again, like many times this season, I just turned to my dad and I thought, what's going on? Like, what is actually going on? But it's absolutely brilliant. As I said, beautiful chaos.
It is. Moments of Madness is probably the title of Middlesbrough. You know, we can do it for and we can do it against. We're just absolutely chaotic at times, and that's what you want, though, man. You just want moments of madness which can create something out of nothing in terms of atmosphere, or it can do on the pitch in terms of confidence. But it always felt in that game where I think in the first half it was a case of we weren't at it in terms of tempo. I think it was definitely a game of tempo in my opinion. When we are flat, like roller cola flat,
roller cola
flat, Dana. It is Council Estate Coke, and that is what we're going to talk about. So on
went
this,
over my head.
Yeah, I mean, roller cola, you know, you got to know all these things. But anyway, it was flat, and it just needed a bit of fizz in the game, a bit of bubbles. You know what I mean? You just wanted a bit of sugar. You wanted to get off your seat. You wanted to see a bit of zip and a bit of tempo on how Boro were playing. And you know, credit to Hull, I thought they nullified us quite well, but also I think a lot of our problems came from our own our own performance. I thought we were playing a bit too safe, a bit horseshoey to some extent, where we were playing around the back line, going to different areas, weren't willing to maybe switch the player, and we have done previously. And I think rightfully so, Carrick went in on them at half time, and we resolved a lot of the issues that we had. But I thought it was a very interesting game on Wednesday night, and I looked at the playing styles, and I think when you're understanding teams, and what I personally like to do is look at goal kicks, because I try to understand what a team is trying to do and how they're trying to attack a team. I know when we were looking at Hull, they were trying to play in probably moments, really. I don't think they were there to try and cut us open and have mass possession of the ball. They were looking at key moments to try and implement the play and score from a set piece. And they did so. But on their goal, I want to look at goal kicks, because I want to look at Hulls and I want to look at Boroughs, and how each setup can really affect the game in different ways. So looking at Hull first, and I thought was really interesting, because as you could see in the game, that the centre half would take the goal kick and would pass it to the goalkeeper, which in a nutshell would invite a press from Cameron Archer, and he would try and create like a darting run to try and cut the supply off and try and force the ball out wide. And this is exactly what Boro wanted, because they wanted to win it in a quadrant around the left-hand side or the right-hand side of the pitch, where it's like the final third. And what you wanted to do in that moment is try and pinch off either the full-back or the centre midfielder, press them well, and that turns over into a really good scoring opportunity. Whereas if you're Hull, and we've got a clip on this, just which we'll go on to a sec. Your aim is for this, when you are trying to play it through with your centre backs, if the goalkeeper's playing it to the centre back, or your goalkeeper's trying to lift it over the defence into key pockets, or over Lenihan and over McNair if they want to. But your aim is from your centre half to bring the ball forward, play into your centre forward, Adama Traore, with Seri trying to maybe play a through ball for Vaughan and get in behind Boro and try and play behind the defence. And we've got a clip on this, which I kind of want to show, because there was an exact moment where they did do this and they broke the press and they were able to get in behind for Boro. So yeah, as it comes through, plays it forward, and then Boro press really well in this key moment, right? So Hackney does well, Mount does well, and it forces them to Seri, and they have to recycle the play. So Greaves gets the ball, plays at the left back, and they're trying to recycle it again. And Boro in this 4-3-1-2 shape with Mount in the middle, and it really nullifies the space really well. But as they get forward again, they get the ball through, Traore gets the ball, and he finds that pocket of space for Vaughan to run in behind, and they play it through. And that was probably one of the first or two times that they were able to break Boro's press and get in behind. And I think sometimes with those those moments, Boro are suspected to it, but it's not a bad thing. You know, like, teams will always do it. They'll always find an opportunity to get in behind. And Boro was set up in that 4-1-3-2 formation where they were able to pick which side they were going on, depending on where the goalkeeper or the centre back was going to kick it. So really interesting stuff on that front. Boro pressed well. They didn't really break out too much, but let's look at Boro and how Hull set up, because Hull was very interesting because it's the first time I've seen a team do this to us, actually, from when we've looked at in the past anyway, from when we've been looking at Boro and Goalkicks. You know, Boro like to play out from the back in terms of they like to create a transition period, which is very interesting. So you either give the ball to McNair or you give the ball to Lenihan. That creates a press, that creates space for Howson to play to Tommy Smith, then to either Akpom, and then we've created a false transition. And I say transition, right? And now a transition is when you kind of recover the ball off an opposition and then you get them on the counter attack, right? But it's a fake transition, really, because you invite the press, you've played through them, so then they're running back, so it looks like a transition, it feels like a transition, but it's not a transition. So what Hull do to try and completely nullify Boro's attacking threat on this, where they're trying to get the ball out wide, and that's Boro's aim, to try and get the ball out wide, create an overload, and get in behind. But they thought, you know what, we're going to sit a little bit different. We're going to play a 4-3-3, and then we're going to sit off you. So your centre-back's going to have the ball. We're going to stop the outlet to Smith and Giles, and we're going to try and force you along. Now, this is a really good thing for Boro, because when you've got Zach Steffen in goal, this works very well, because what you're able to do is, with his distribution, is probably play the ball over the top and try and manipulate the centre halves to create a big space between them so you get the ball over the top. And this is exactly what Boro do for one of the goals. So what happens is, when I've got the visual of it, they're in a 4-3-3. They don't press the centre, the goalkeeper, they don't press the centre halves. And then what happens is Akpom, he comes in ever so slightly, and what he does is he pulls Greaves in. So that creates such a big space for Archer to run into. And obviously Archer, with his wisdom and strength, which we didn't think he'd have, plays off the defender and then gets the goal. But Boro do that a couple of times in the game, and that's how we're able to break their press and be very successful in it. So it was very interesting to watch, but Boro were very good. But it shows having a great goalkeeper with good distribution creates different outlets, and also gives you different opportunities to play and break teams down. So that was my analysis of the game, which I thought was very interesting. It's very boring.
Very good.
It's very,
No, I
thank
enjoyed
you.
that, and I enjoyed more in the middle as well. More in the middle was of particular note, and the rest, of course, but more in the middle just made me laugh.
Yeah. So it's interesting because when Mort's in the middle, like he was playing, I was playing on the press though, wasn't he? He was like playing on the press, whatever side that centre half got the ball, the goalkeeper got the ball, he would always follow that side. So then you're able to pick a side to go from. And you see a lot of teams do that now with a goalkeeper, because it kind of nullifies everyone goes to that side, everyone goes to that side. So interesting stuff. But yeah, really good stuff. It's quite boring that Goalkicks are my favourite part of football at the moment, but they tell you a lot.
They
so
do.
if you're ever interested, look at a goal kick. But apart from that, Dana, what do you think the key factors were then around Boro's comeback? Because a lot happened. You know, there's some aspects of like the long ball from Steffen, but there was a few key moments that happened and it went in Boro's favour, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest key moment of the game was the substitution to bring on Isaiah Jones, because I think we stretched them and we hit them where it hurt, which was in behind. Because when you have players with pace, it can be devastating. And I noticed in the game, if you watch the goals back, you can see that Hull are basically magnetised to Tube Ratpom. Wherever he goes, they'll basically... They probably were a little bit naive in overcommitting, and in the case of the Hackney goal and then the Akpom goal, they're just overcommitting on him, and they're making so much space become available out wide for Jones to run into. And again, as I said, it was incredibly naive, because it was almost as if they forgot Jones was on the pitch. He absolutely burned their left back, and Callum Elder, I think it was. And it was just that overcommitting on Akpom. Obviously, he is our main man, and there's no denying that. But it's just that like sort of decision to essentially tuck in a lot of the time, which was what they were doing. Whenever Akpom made that run central, they were narrowing a bit and then leaving that space in behind. And I think that
Hmm.
substitution of Jones was really, really important. And Dijksteel as well. I think them two, we saw a little bit of deja vu from last season. That link up, it just needed Crooks, didn't it, on that right hand side? Then we had that
I was
little
thinking that, yeah.
iconic triangle. But them two together, the combination play, the awareness of each other's positions, spatially, knowing when to sort of release, when to hang back, when to overlap, was just really good. So I think that was a pivotal part of the game, and it changed it. You know, you can't deny that Jones was the main man in that second half because he created 5 chances, playing 48 minutes of that game, and no player in the league created more than that in that game week. So it's maybe a little bit easier for me to say it was down to Jones, but I think it largely was, because we were playing it in behind rather than probably playing it in front of them as we were tending to doing more often in the first half. So yeah, that was a big, big, important part of the game. That substitution to bring on Jones and to bring on Dijksteel as well.
Yeah. It was really good to see Big Anth back, right? Really
It
good.
was, yeah, it
I
was.
was very happy, but I'll come to him in just a moment. But you was mentioning there around the 5 big chances, his 2 assists. He got man of the match on Sky, and he looked rejuvenated. He looked back to his sensational best, which we haven't seen for a hot minute, really. But he's been out.
Mm,
Obviously became a parent for the first time, and then also, he's got all the baggage that comes with that, which must be difficult for anyone.
mm,
And also like coming out, you see someone taking his position, forced. You got Ramsey coming in the building, they're scoring goals. It's difficult to get in 1 minute. You're cock the walk, next minute you're nothing. And
football. That's football.
yeah, well, that's football. Uh, I know.
Love
I
it.
feel there was you sent me a voice note earlier, didn't you, around Carrick, and it looked like he was trying to stop himself from saying it, but he
Yeah, he
just
said it within the
could.
first 2 minutes, I think, which was just excellent. Really, really good. Loved it.
It's the content we live for. That's football. So what do you think? Got him back to his sensational best end. Do you think just timeout has just helped massively to get him back to where he is?
I don't know. I just think confidence. As soon as he made that first play in the game, and I think Jones made good decisions in that game. I think in terms of his cross selection, I think they were they were good crosses, on the whole. And I think once you have that, you just grow in confidence. You could see the confidence just oozing out of him at the end. And maybe maybe he has just needed time. He alluded to on
Mm.
Instagram that he's been going through a little bit of a sticky spell, off the pitch with his family. So there's potentially that as well. It's that good old, sort of nugget of we don't know what a player is going through, off the pitch, no lease on it as well. So I think he's just needed time and he's just needed confidence, and hopefully this is, he's planted that flag in the sand now of, this is me, I'm back, and he can be a really good player for the rest of the season and going into the playoffs. Because when you've got Isaiah Jones, even half of the Isaiah Jones from last season, then that's a very, very good prospect there for us, and it's a very good option for us to have.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I just want to touch back on what you're saying there on confidence. How massive is it in football?
Mm.
There was a game I was watching midweek. It was actually Chelsea Madrid. And I'm going to give Frank Lampard some praise here, which has never comes out of my mouth. But he actually
What?
set up Chelsea quite well. But I mean, Real Madrid don't really set up amazingly well. But there's two things that are one big thing in football. Well, not two. Quality of players and also confidence, right? But
Yeah.
confidence is massive. It's huge in any walk of life. If you are confident, you feel that you can walk through walls, walk on water, and do whatever, right? Helps with execution, helps with, game management, making right decisions, and just your overall game is just so much better. And it's so like underrated, I think, in football. You see teams down at the bottom where they can't win a game, and then you see the teams at the top who just feel invincible. And sometimes there's just that 1% difference, but confidence just pays dividends in it. And you could definitely see it in Jones when everyone was singing his name. You kind of felt
Mm.
like he was feeding off it. And you could feel that he had his mojo back a little bit and he was getting at his defender, and you didn't really see that probably the start of the season and maybe the back end of Chris Wilder's reign as well, which probably will coincide with everything that's been going on in his life. But confidence just so key, and you could say the same with Dijksteel as well, because he looked like he was itching to get on the field in the second half, and he had to be held back to be subbed on where it looked like it anyway. But he said, Carrick even said that in the post match that he may have a dislike for, or Carrick may, like Dijksteel may have a dislike for Carrick because he's been out the squad, which I don't see the case at all. But how happy we see Big Anth back, because I was delighted. The love affair continues, like I was very happy to see Anfernee Dijksteel. And actually, Dan, while we're on Dijksteel, I'm just going to
Oh, here we go.
There we go. The Dijksteel son. It just makes me happy in every single way. But yeah,
Johnny's happy place.
Johnny's happy place with Anfernee Dijksteel as the son, which was like on Channel 5. Remember that, like years ago? I remember that. It might be Teletubbies, yeah. It was on Channel 5.
Yeah, it's the Teletubbies, the baby son, the baby and the son, yeah.
That's it. We talk absolute nonsense, sorry. But yeah, like Big Anth, it was like just a throwback on it. It was great. He was great at right back on a Wednesday night, wasn't he?
Yeah, again, another player that was making good decisions in the game, and you could tell that once you sort of get that first touch of the ball again, because bear in mind he's been out for a long time. I think he was injured. I think he's played for Suriname, and that was it in terms of match involvement. I think he was stripped and ready to come on in one of the previous games, and then just didn't. Because I remember on our Telegram chat, it was like, "Oh, Anfernee Dijksteel," and then he just didn't come on. It was like, it was like that Roy Hodgson meme where he's like,
yeah.
He's waiting for England to score, and then I don't know, Raheem Sterling balloons it over into, I don't even know, Malta or somewhere. But it was just good to see him. It was, because Dijksteel and I said this on BBC Tees as well. Dijksteel and Moore and Jones, they're not bad players. They've just had seasons that are below what we've seen of them before. Obviously, in the case of Moore, we haven't seen him in a Boro shirt before this season, but going off his time at Leeds, his time at Barnsley, his time at even partly, I guess, at West Brom, it doesn't make them bad players. Poor runs, poor form does not make a player poor. And we saw that Dijksteel and Jones were good players last season. They don't just lose that. It doesn't just mean that their ability is completely just evaporated and they're just simply not a footballer anymore. As you will say yourself, Johnny, as you've said, it's sort of outside football context. Growth is linear, or isn't linear, sorry. It's very much a bit of a cartoon drawing sometimes, isn't it, where it's up and down, and you never have a straight line. So it was good to see him back, and hopefully again it's another option for the run-in and for the playoffs as well, because them two together, Jones and Dijksteel, changed the game on Wednesday night.
They really did. They really did. And just want to say, you said options there, and the options were sponsored by Don. And just with us as well, like when we've seen Dijksteel, it was nice to see him on that right hand side, because I remember when he first came to the club and he seemed a bit shaky on as a right back, but you could just see the growth that he's had as a player, playing probably right centre half and then covering Jones for long periods, and then now playing on the right hand side. It was just really good, and seeing him pick up the ball from right back, then run halfway through half the pitch and create an opportunity
like a gazelle. He is, isn't he? Lovely, silky little gazelle.
Just everything you want from a right back, Anfernee Dijksteel. But I'd like to see more of him, hopefully, towards the end of the season. He's a quality player. I do really like him, and it showed that he has the quality to be good. And it shows as well, like a manager as well. If you're out the squad, you're coming back in and they're still motivated, they still want to make a point, then they want to make a difference on the pitch. It's good management, and you don't always see that with clubs. You can see players throw the toys up the pram, and it's difficult. You see at Chelsea where there's like 30 players, like 30 first team players who can't get a game, and every time they play, they don't want to. So creating like an environment to have that is really, really good. But do you want to talk about Cameron Archer, because he is
I'd love to
on fire at the minute, isn't he? So like looking at his stats at the minute, I posted a tweet the other day that he's currently tracking at 0.69 goals per 90. So if he was to continue at that rate, he would have ended on 31 goals this season, which is very impressive because he's scoring goals for fun, but also 15 goals in 17 games of performance XG by 4, 1 goal in every 3.7 shots, and all the data you can't even track. So he's very impressive, isn't he, Dynamo?
Yeah, honestly, he's brilliant. I have not seen a lot of good finishes at Boro, granted, but he is just so clinical. And as I said in the last pod, it's just that blend of pace and strength and just clinical finishing. I mean, when he took that ball from Zach Steffen's pass, I should have trusted him more because it's Cameron Archer, but I suppose the Boro fan in me, seeing all of these Boro players, literally Ashley Fletcher at Huddersfield away a few seasons ago, just hoiking it over the crossbar from about a yard out, like that plays on your mind, doesn't it? And it comes into play sometimes, whether you want it to or not. And when he was in that, it was a somewhat tight angle, wasn't it? His shot selection is fantastic. He's so intelligent in assessing, because you've got to think, the game is played so quickly and you don't have hours to decide on what you're going to do. Those split second decisions that Cameron Archer does to know exactly what he's going to do based on the position that he's in is absolutely fantastic. And one thing I will say about him as well, data brought him to Boro because Kieran Scott mentioned in one of the Middlesbrough Supporters Forum meetings that I was in that they looked at our XG. I don't know whether this was XG per 90 or just XG in general from this season. And they thought, because Burnley were after him, a lot of teams were after him, that this was the best place for him based on chance creation and allowing Cameron Archer to be in those spaces on a football match or football pitch to score goals. And that was corroborated by Greg Evans in The Athletic as well. They basically said the same thing, that the data analyst at Villa earmarked Middlesbrough as a team to take Cameron Archer, the best place team for him. The fact that he's a goal off double figures, despite having only joined the team in January, is incredible. It is actually incredible. Yeah. I don't know how many Championship players have managed that, because I can't imagine it would have been a regular thing. So honestly, I've said it before, just so good, and yeah, Boro fans cherish him because he won't be back here. He will be playing for Villa next season, and he absolutely deserves it.
No, he doesn't. He's crap. You can't watch it. Look, Aston Villa. He's crap. You may as well just sell him was for free, to be honest. You're going to be in the Europa League anyway. You're not going to play him, so we may as well have him. So, but yeah, look at his record's incredible, though, isn't it? It's absolutely insane. I think if it was to track, obviously the tracking to be on 31 goals for an entire season. And obviously Akpom's on 39, which is nuts if he was to play 46 games. I've never seen anything like it. But of course, that is like a track over a long period of time. That will not happen. It will obviously decline. But to average at that number is insane. The numbers he's bringing to the table already is insane. And is he... Could ask the question, could he be one of the most effective loans we've had in recent history? Because
yes,
because you think November, December time, we just crooks up top, and it just seems like we've just had the right piece to the puzzle, and it gives me Gaston Ramirez vibes when we needed that quality. But what he's doing right now is incredibly good. Could do actually, Dana. We could look at the comparisons for Gaston Ramirez and Cameron Archer, right? And then look at the goal contributions for that period of time, because I'd be very keen to see how effective both players were in terms of chances created, and then obviously goals scored as well. And I feel like Archer might come on top on that. So he could be one of the most effective loan signings in recent history, but who knows? Maybe I'm overplaying it, but I feel like he is probably good enough to kind of, be probably one of the most effective players that we've had.
I don't think you're overselling it there, to be honest. I think both of those players were the final piece of the jigsaw that Boro needed at the very time that they were brought in. As you said, Crooks was up top before he came in, and as much as I love Crooks, can you imagine us sticking with him up front? Obviously, granted, there's Marcus Forst there that also played in that number 9 role, but predominantly this season we've seen him out wide. Archie was everything that Boro were needing, and
Mm.
just supplementing what we already had, which was already good, with this extra option. And in every forum that I've lurked in on an opposition persuasion, they've all said how clinical we are, and that's just music to my ears as a Boro fan, because to have Archer, to have Force, to have Akpom, to have McGree, to have Crooks, to have Ramsey, to have these finishers in this team is insane.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Top goal scorers in the championship. Who would have thought we would ever say that? But we are saying it, and we're just so effective. But I was going to move on to the praising players, Dana, but we have praised 3 players there in Archer, Dijksteel, Jones. I know the praising place is the place we like to give praise to anyone. But what are you going to go with this week? Because there's some strong contenders for the praising place.
You know what? I actually want to praise Alex Moore. I will say, I was asked by Ado on BBC Tees after the game who my man of the match was. I panicked and I said Alex Moore, despite Jones literally being right there. We were talking about him like 2 minutes prior. So yeah, I retract that. I don't think Moore was man of the match, but I just want to praise Moore because he's come in, and a lot of people had raised eyebrows about him and thought, well, why is he coming on? Why is he having a part to play? He's just been a bit of a flop signing. We're even sort of discussing his future in the podcast around January. I understand now that he's played for 2 clubs, so he can't play for a third, or couldn't back in January, so that was redundant anyway. But he's just been really good in slotting in, and it's just that seamless introduction or reintroduction to this team. So hats off to Alex Mort for that. And I also want to put in the praise in place the chips and curry that I had at the game on Wednesday night, because as you'll know, Johnny, the Mackham's gone. The Mackham has
He is
gone out
gone.
on the leeway, opposite the Navy, the train crossing for the Navy.
Mhm.
He's gone. He's absolutely just upped and left. The van that's there now, I can't remember the name, so I apologize. Something Grill, I think. But oh my god, those chips and curry were insane. They were really, really nice. A smaller box, but that suits me. So footy scran, get on that. Chips and curry are in the praising place. First time I've had them for a while, so yeah, I really enjoyed it. I've missed my curry and chips.
Yeah, I've missed having like my pre-match meal as well. And I don't know. I wasn't tempted to go back, to be honest, but you might have swayed me to give it a try. And I think it means a lot. Football scran. It's part of the match day routine.
It is.
But now that you've had a good chips and curry experience, I'll have to give it a whirl. But I was wondering why I seen a photo of chips and gravy in the notes, and I thought, yeah,
I almost forgot about it, can't lie.
yeah. Yeah, so that's what I mean. I was like, why are they there? So there must have been a good time to be implementing the podcast, right? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, God, you've stumped me. I feel like I don't know what to do now. I have to Coventry. It is, I guess, Coventry for to try some chips and gravy and see how it goes. It can't be bad, right? Surely not. But I think the person gets my praise in the praise in place. I think it has to go to Akpom, and I know like we spoke about everyone on this podcast today, but to 9 goals in a row at home, unheard of, right? Unheard of.
Championship
For
record, yeah, brilliant.
championship record, he just keeps breaking records, doesn't he? And he deserves to be in the present place. And I feel like we've kind of like maybe skipped past him over the last few weeks because he's just naturally been the person that everyone wants to choose. But for me, Akpom, I think he deserves the recognition this week, and I hope he goes on to score 30 goals for the season, because that'd be pretty cool, right? You waited so long for someone to score 20 and we get 30 in a season. So it's just insane. Football works in mysterious ways, but it's great to see. But let's move on to podcast questions, because every week you get the chance to send us your questions via email at theborobreakdown@hotmail.com, or Twitter at Boro_breakdown, or by joining our Telegram chat with over 300 Boro fans chatting everything but Boro. And it is absolutely free to join us. But also, before I go on the questions, just want to give you a little push to our Patreon as well. And if you hear ads like I do, you can get ad-free pods of this podcast for £1.99 a month. You get exclusive content on there, which we are working on. But ad-free stuff, who doesn't like ad-free stuff? But if you like ads, then you like ads. That's pretty cool. The first question, it's from Jake Johnson, and he does a YouTube channel as well. So if you haven't seen that, do give it a watch. And he says, who would you guys want in the playoffs? Dana Malt, who would you like in the playoffs?
I could tell you who I don't want. Millwall, because I think they're quite
Millwall. Interesting.
No, they're a very stodgy defensive unit. They've only conceded 1 goal per game on average this season. They're one of the best defences in the Championship. And plus, no team has scored more from set pieces than them. And I just don't trust Boro to defend set pieces. I don't really trust Boro to defend anyway, but from set pieces, I don't know. There's something a little bit sus about us. I don't want West Brom because of Carlos Corberán. If any manager is going to divert away from the usual game plan to combat a team in a high pressure situation, it's him. Don't want West Brom. I want Blackburn. Because, and disclaimer here, I know that we have statistically the worst defence in the league, so pot calling the kettle black here, but they are the next worst. Then the next worst defence in the top 6. We obviously can't play ourselves, so they've conceded 48 goals this season, so slightly down on the rest of the top 6. And they've also scored the least goals in the top 6 with 46 goals scored. And in terms of stylistically, we need a team that are a little bit suspect on the transition and from counter-attacks. And I just think that out of all the teams, if I was a betting person, I would not trust Blackburn. I think going to Ewood Park, I know previously it's been terrible, especially for us last season. We won't talk about that again. But I would trust us. I would trust us going to Ewood Park far more than I would trust us going to Kenilworth Road or to the Den. But I will say, against any team, it's going to be tough. But against any team, I'm going to back Boro a little bit more than I have done previously. So we could compete with these teams, we can, but it's always going to be difficult in the playoffs because it's, again, as I've said, high pressure situations. You're playing football to go to Wembley to get into the Premier League. That's huge. But I think out of all of them, I'd probably say Blackburn.
Yeah, I was going to say the team I definitely don't want is West Brom. I couldn't think of anything worse than playing a Carlos Corberán side at all. I couldn't. I know Daryl Dykes injured now, and he was the one that scored the 2 in our defeat. But I can't. He's got a number. He just got an answer for everything, and for me, he is probably the best manager in the league because I feel, and hear me out on this one, I feel like he can go to every single club in the Championship and make them better. And I don't think any manager can say that, which is like very good compliment. But Carrick is amazing, and so is Vince Kompany. But like, if you were like on the bare bones and Carlos Corberán was free, you pick Carlos every time. So I'm worried about him in West Brom. But who do I want? I was going to say I do want Millwall because hear me out, because they can't score and break down teams like below them. They really struggle to do it, and I think that we have enough quality there to get past them offensively. You know, we create plenty of opportunities. It's very difficult to contain us, but also I think if we just, and you were saying there around transitions, well, earlier I was mentioning about we create our own transitions. So it could be anything. I just think we're a little bit better than Millwall. I think we'll get past them, and then if we were in the final, just anyone but Sunderland. I think anyone but Sunderland or West Brom.
This is interesting with Sunderland though, because like obviously everyone would collectively shit themselves coming up against Sunderland just because it's like a derby, or they won't say it unless they win.
It's not derby. It's not that derby thing. It's Tony Mowbray. He watches every single Boro game, and if you know what I mean, he's like his own analyst for like Middlesbrough. He knows the club inside out. Knows exactly how a team's going to play, and it annoys me. He does so well against us, and much of a legend he is. If he wanted to cement his legacy as a Boro legend, And you know what I'm going to
Let us
say?
win.
You have to let us win, Tony. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You've got to let us win. If you go to Wembley and you beat us at Wembley with Sunderland, you're dead to me. So
The only thing with them is why I take out, and I know you can't take this out, but take out the matchup between the two sides and the fact that it's coming up against Tony Mowbray and also coming up against your northeast rival. They've got injuries to hell. Danny Bart is out for the rest of the season now. They've got so many injury issues that is a key vulnerability that you can pick at in terms of team selection. Now, Amad Diallo isn't injured yet, so there's always that. But I don't know, we might not have to play Sunderland. The race for that 6th place is going to be really interesting. We haven't even mentioned commentary yet, to be honest, with Gyökeres. To be
they were
honest, don't really
great.
want to play
Yeah.
them either. So I think they're a very good team in terms of counter-attacking other teams. Are probably defending counter-attacks as well. I really like Gus Harmer in midfield. I think he's that little ratty midfielder that we're probably missing. Well, I don't think we're missing, but we don't have that sort of profile, which is it's suited us fine without. But going forward, maybe somebody that we can look at, depending on what league we're in next season. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm just hoping that we can give a better account of ourselves than the last time that we were in the playoffs, because you just started this podcast when we played Aston Villa. It was quite possibly the most pathetic managerial performance that I have seen over the course of 180 minutes. The fact that Fabio was our most attacking outlet in both of those games was embarrassing, to be honest. It was actually pathetic watching us in that
No.
game. Did we have a shot on target? I don't think we did we? It was
No, we
embarrassing.
didn't. Yeah, and we had like Bamford, Traore, Braithwaite was there, right? Was Braithwaite still there? I don't think he was. But
No.
our team was still very stacked, and yeah, less said the better about that. Less said the better about that. But we'll move on. We digress. And that final question, and it's a bit of a joint one because we got it a lot in the comments this week. Is around Smith and Force being injured and who we'd like to see replace them. Boroboy63 and Josh, they both asked us the question of if Smith and Smorth, like Marcus, like Smurf, they could be a Smurf at this point. If Smith and Force are fit for the remainder of the season, honestly, my dyslexia is just funny. If Smith and Force are fit for the remainder of the season, would you go with them or Jones and Dijksteel, or is Dijksteel a better option than Tommy Smith at right back? Very emotional comments, really, given that Smith's played so well for ages. But are they better? Who knows? I'm going to ask you the question, Dana. One, who would you like to see play the right back and right mid role? And two, is Dijksteel better than Tommy Smith?
No, I want to pick up on a point you just made there, that yes, Dijksteel and Jones were good in those 45 minutes that they played, but I don't think we should use that as a way to I don't think anyone's trying to do this, but discredit Smith, because on the whole he's been solid since his contract extension, and this is merely a coincidence, I think. I don't feel like he's been as good as before. Interesting little thing that with contracts, because I always feel like that happens. A player will play really, really well, then they'll get a contract extension, and then they'll dip in performance. Maybe that's just going to happen anyway, and that whole contract thing is a coincidence. But anyway, I'm rambling.
No, you're
I
right.
would, I
You're
would
right.
like to see. Oh, thank you. I would like to see Dijksteel moving forward. Because I think in terms of what you mentioned earlier, the fact that he's played right back, the fact that he's played right centre half, that really comes into play in that position. There's a lot of tactical and positional fluidity in our team, not just in the attacking third, but defensively as well. A lot of the time when you'll see Tommy Smith overlap, but also you'll see him tuck in as one of the third centre halves when we are building it out. So I think Dijksteel could really fit there. The other thing is, though, that probably works against Dijksteel is I think Tommy Smith is just that little bit better in terms of crossing. Though I will say we haven't really seen too much of Dijksteel crossing, because it's usually Jones that does that, from the wilder ball. But yeah, if Smith and Force are fit for the remainder of the season, I would go with Smith and Force. But you can't discount two very good options there in Jones and Dijksteel. So perhaps in the case of Force or Jones, perhaps it depends on the opposition and how much space they will allow us out wide, what their defensive shape is going to be when Akpom, for example, pulls into those central or comes out into those deep areas. Maybe it just depends. But for me, I like to see Dijksteel moving forward. Maybe not now, but definitely in the midterm if he's still here. But yeah, I'd probably, if they're fit, I'd stick with Smith and Force for right now.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think Dijksteel is great, and also Marcus Forss is my favourite Boro player. So there you go. I'm obviously going to pick my favourite, Anna. But it is what it is. You have your favourites, and that's it.
Don't be resting on favourite players. I got blocked about so many times last season for defending Tavernier, even though he wasn't even my favourite player. But be careful what you do there, Jonny.
We really came full circle on this podcast as well with like that Tavernier stuff last year as well.
We did.
Weren't a fan, then became a fan. Gasmark, yeah. And now look at Tav thrive for Bournemouth. He's actually got the most goal contributions up for Bournemouth this season, and he's playing very, very well. And I'm not surprised either. But yeah, I love Marcus Forss, so I'm going to put him there regardless. So what he's going to do over there, and then Dijksteel is again because I just love Dijksteel. So unfortunately, Jones and Smith here, I don't care what you've done. You're not getting in. I've got my favourites. Like Michael Carrick has his favourites. But anyway, no one's here for my opinion. But let's move on to Luton then, because they've leapfrogged us into third and have been playing very, very well this season under Edwards. And he could have been at Boro, but then we turned and changed our minds and went with Michael Carrick. But Dana, how are you feeling? Because Luton have just done amazingly well, but they have done for like the last few seasons, like the worst kept secret in Championship, right?
Yeah, I hate this whole cliche sort of opinion of Luton that like, oh, why isn't anyone looking at Luton? I'm pretty sure everyone's looking at Luton. If you haven't been paid attention to Luton over the past couple of years, I will question where you've been over the past couple of years. They're a very good team. They're a very smart football club. They have been building for the past. When was it that they got promoted? Was it 2019-20? Because it was that 3-3 game on the opening day, wasn't it? That was their first season in the Championship. Yeah. God, memories. Yeah, they're a good team and they're a good football club in terms of just how they operate. And it's going to be a really, really interesting affair because it's a really good defence, one of the best of the Championship. I think they've kept the most clean sheets in the league this season versus the Championship's most potent attack. So what wins there? Is it the sturgy, tough defense, or is it the free-flowing, piercing attack? I'm really interested in this one, but I pulled up a stat before we started that Luton have scored 11 goals in the last 15 minutes of games this season, but also conceded 10. So that's a decent share of goals there in the final 15 minutes. So it could get chaotic in the last 15 minutes of the game at Kenilworth Road on Monday night, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fantastic game.
Yeah, moments of madness in the final 15, right? I mean, I'm all for it. But you were absolutely spot on though, Dan. Like, they are a very smart football club, using data first to try and get the recruitment absolutely spot on. You're looking for who they've been buying in the summer. Corley Woodrow was a name that we really wanted. Carlton Morris as well. They're going for a snip from Barnsley. I honestly question some of Barnsley's dealings because they've had some great players in the past and just let them go for pennies. So like that's why they're probably in League One for doing that. But look, they're a really good football team, and it's going to be such a difficult game on Monday night. And it could potentially be the playoff final,
dress rehearsal.
Yeah. So I don't know how it's going to go. What's your predictions, Dee? What are you thinking?
Oh, you know what? Yeah, this is really, really tough to call. And I did say to you before we came and started recording this that I had to think about it. I haven't thought about it. So this is
I'll
the
give you like
on the
50 odd
spot.
minutes, Dana. Give you
Yeah,
50 odd
well, I've
minutes.
just been, I've just been thinking about other things.
And the half an hour we spoke before even the
Yeah.
podcast started. Like, how much time do you need? Just want to
It's not
score,
enough.
please.
It's not enough. I think both teams are going to score. I am going to go with 3-2 Middlesbrough. Why the hell not?
Wow, you what? Love that. Absolutely love a good scoreline like that. 3-2. You take that any day of the week, you know. I'm gonna go with 2-1 Boro. I think we'll win. I think we look really good at the minute, and I think I think it'll be a game where you mentioned there, Dan. I think it'll be moments of madness, and I think those moments we'll probably see those 3 goals happen within the space of 20 minutes, and then it'll be a game of just basketball from there. Dana, thank you very much for joining me as always. To listeners, the viewers, thank you very much for listening to us and viewing us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to the Boro Breakdown on your podcast provider. And on YouTube, give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube and subscribe and do all that fun stuff. But for right now, Boro and Maul the Tigers, but can they pull something out the hat against the Hatters? This is the Boro Breakdown podcast, and that was a Boro Matchday Chatter in a pod. Up the Boro Breakdown.